Hearing close in the forest you'll find a fabulous banquet, a fairy ball. If you close your eyes and you open your mind, the veil disappears and you'll see it all.
Hi my angels, it's Hailey Reese, and for today's video we are finally going to be diving into the true story behind a haunting in Connecticut. I watched this movie when I was much younger. It scared me so much, but it scared me even more when I found out that it was based on a true story. A Haunting in Connecticut was actually based on a real life family who in turn and in the end actually sought assistance from Ed and Lorraine Warren, which you guys know I've covered a lot of different Ed and Lorraine Warren cases here on my channel, so I feel that it's only fitting that I finally dive into this particular case. Now, one of the main reasons that I haven't dove into this case yet is because it's a little bit messy, and by messy I mean there's a lot of controversy surrounding whether or not this was a true event. There was a real family that claims to have experienced all of this. They did call in Ed and Lorraine Warren. However, the authenticity of their story has been questioned by many. So doing research on a case like this isn't always the easiest thing to do. It felt like I was digging through article after article, one that would be in favor of the family and then another article that would debunk them. So I hope that by the end of today's video, you can form your own opinion as to whether or not you believe this story to be entirely true. So The Haunting in Connecticut is actually a 2009 psychological thriller horror film that was based on the true events of what the Snedeker family went through. Like I said, the paranormal case of the Snedeker family is one of the most controversial, especially in the Ed and Lorraine Warren series that I've kind of conducted here on my channel. It's definitely up there with the Enfield poltergeist as far as people trying to debunk it. So the Snedeker family actually consisted of the mom and dad, Carmen and Alan, their three sons, Philip, Bradley, and AJ, Alan Jr., and their daughter, Jennifer. Now it's a little bit messy as far as the daughter, Jennifer, as well, because if you do your research into this case, some articles will claim that they had a daughter named Jennifer, others leave Jennifer out, but more so than not, it is said that there were 4 children in this family. So the eldest son, Philip Snedeker, actually had cancer of the immune system, Hodgkin's lymphoma, and so on June 30th, 1986, the Snedeker family actually went ahead and moved to 208 Meriden Avenue to actually be closer to UConn hospital for all of their son's treatments. They have been commuting a long distance to get him to his treatment several times a week, and his mother Carmen feared that these long trips mixed with his treatments would kill him much sooner than the cancer itself actually would. Now around this time there were actually many homes that were not accepting of families with more than 2 children, and on top of that, the family was really suffering with their finances. They were hard done by with their finances, and they were having difficult times affording a lot of the houses that could accommodate their children. So when they found this particular home that was not only spacious, that was allowing of 4 children, but was also affordable, it kind of seemed like a dream come true for all of them, and they decided on June 30th, 1986, they had found the perfect home. Unfortunately, they would very quickly upon entering this home learn that this home had a very dark history to it, and it was extremely haunted. Now upon moving in, their eldest son Philip right away had a terrible feeling with this house. He actually went ahead and told his mom, this house is evil, we need to leave right away. Now at this point is where the first serious bits of controversy surrounding this case appear. Carmen Snedeker says that the movie was correct in depicting the fact that she had no idea that this home was a funeral home prior to being a residency. She said that she'd never been in the basement due to renovations, and so she had no idea that downstairs there was actually a morgue. Apparently, according to Carmen Snedeker, renovation equipment had been blocking the stairs to the basement when they had initially looked at the house, so she had no idea that downstairs was a morgue, and it was shocking to her upon moving in and exploring the basement to find out that there was still a bunch of morgue materials downstairs. However, the former owner and the in-house neighbor claimed that that is in fact a blatant lie, and she was informed that the house was in fact a funeral home prior before moving in, hence why the rent was so affordable for them, and hence why there were still materials within it. So a big controversy surrounds this particular detail of this case, because a lot of people believe that Carmen was lying when she says that she had no knowledge of the house having been a former funeral home. Either way, the truth of the matter is that this home had been used as a funeral home for multiple decades prior to being rented out as a residency. Right away after moving in, the family noticed a couple of very strange things. The first being that above each doorway, there were crucifixes hung. And on top of that, when they approached the basement, they found that there was a ton of mortuary equipment everywhere, including toe tags. Could you imagine? So upon realizing that this was in fact a funeral home, that all of the morgue equipment was still downstairs, Carmen claims that she automatically didn't really want to live there. Not in fear of ghosts, but in fear that because her son was so sick, this would be a constant reminder of death to him, and she really didn't want to provide him with that. But after talking about it with her husband, Alan, they went ahead and decided that they didn't really have much choice as far as where they could live right now, that this was the best possible situation. So Carmen just blocked off the morgue area of the house and in turn put Philip's room in the basement. So to make this very clear, their eldest son, Philip, his room was put into the basement, which was in the same vicinity as the morgue, but she had blocked it entirely off so that the kids couldn't go in there. And right around this time, Alan returned back to New York and left Carmen with the 4 kids to settle the house in, and he went to go and work. Now, one of the biggest reasons that she actually put Philip's room in the basement, even though she was so concerned about him being reminded of death by the morgue, is because it had really great access to a bathroom, and he, while going through his treatments, was extremely nauseous all the time and was throwing up a lot. So it was a really easy place for him to be able to go to the bathroom and throw up if he had to. And she felt as though having him there, she'd be able to hear him easily if he needed help. So Philip remained in the basement. It is said that Bradley also stayed in the basement, and that was kind of their living situation for the next little while. Now, the very first night in the house, Philip says he awoke to somebody repeating his name over and over and over. So he went to go and tell his mom that he could hear this man repeating his name. But at that time, Carmen was actually on the phone with her husband, Alan, his father, and she claimed to Philip that because it was a big empty house, sound was traveling easily, and that he had just heard his dad's voice through the phone. But it still didn't make sense to Philip because his dad wouldn't have been repeating Philip's name over and over and over with nothing else in between. But that's what they chalked it up to that first night. Now, to make this home even creepier, Carmen actually found images of deceased people from the morgue shoved away in cupboards and cabinets. And like, these pictures, you guys, were absolutely disturbing. They were very, very eerie, and it gave her an unsettling feeling. And on top of that, she actually discovered a small cemetery in the backyard near the garden, which gave her an unsettling feeling as well. But those things aren't paranormal, they're just very, very eerie and creepy. Now, on one day, the 3 boys were exploring the house, and they actually went through the barricades that Carmen had made and were within the morgue. And they started to see this strange red liquid appearing, and one of the boys was dared to touch it. Upon doing so, they realized that it was blood. They ran upstairs to tell Carmen that the walls and the floors were leaking blood, but she just gave them trouble for having went into a space in the home where they weren't allowed to be and thought it was their mind playing tricks on them. Shortly after this, and very soon after moving in, Philip began seeing a man all the time, and this man had jet black hair all the way down to his hips. His eyes were black, he was very bony, he had very high cheekbones, and he was like something out of nightmares. Now, sometimes this man would threaten Philip, sometimes he would just be watching him, and other times he would repeat his name over and over and over as though he were calling Philip to him. Philip would tell his mother about this, but she really just chalked it up to him going through intense treatment, him being on a lot of different medications, and thought perhaps it may have been hallucinations. However, after contacting the doctor and really trying to get to the root of what Philip was seeing, the doctor claimed that the medications he was on shouldn't be causing hallucinations of those sorts. So you have to remember that, you guys. Now, around this time, Carmen noticed that the crucifix that had been held above the door to the morgue disappeared entirely. But the nail in which the crucifix was held by had been untouched and undisturbed. So it was as though somebody just pulled this crucifix off of the wall above the door. And that was really, really creepy to her. One night, Philip and Bradley were in the basement and one of their toys went off, and the light from the toy gave just enough in the room for the both of them to actually notice 4 eerie figures in the room. They freaked out. They were so lifelike to the boys that they actually thought maybe somebody had broken in. They ran up to get Carmen. Carmen came down, checked everywhere, couldn't find anything, thought about perhaps calling the police, because she had a feeling she was being watched and felt as though something or someone was there. When she went up to the kitchen though, this is where it gets pretty eerie. She noticed that now the crucifix, which had been hung within the kitchen, had also disappeared and the nail was completely untouched. Now, one of the most eerie incidences in my mind that stands out to me when doing research on this case was one day, Bradley came home from school to find Philip removing all of the barricades to get into the morgue. And when Bradley asked Philip what in the world he was doing, Philip looked at him in a way that was so disconnected and so eerie and not his brother, and said, "I made a deal with him." Ew, like that is so creepy. Now, over time, the personality of Philip just totally evolved. He became disconnected, angry, violent. He was rude and obnoxious and not himself to his family members. And at this time, Carmen once again attributed it to him going through treatment and feeling down and depressed and alone about his situation. That was until Carmen began having certain experiences of her own. Lights in the house were continuously flickering even when they removed the bulbs out of them. Like, that is just wild. Kitchen dishes would actually take themselves out of the cupboards or even put themselves back into the cupboards with no explanation at all. But one of the strangest experiences that Carmen had, in my opinion, was while mopping one day. The water that she was mopping with turned to blood. And she blinked her eyes a few times and it was still blood until eventually it returned back to water. But it had been blood long enough for her to really notice that this wasn't her mind playing tricks on her. Now, over time, Carmen's niece, Tammy, actually moved in with them because her parents were divorcing and things at home weren't great. So she offered to have Tammy come and move in with them. Around this time, Philip had started writing in his journal, and during these moments of anger and isolation, he would always just turn to his journal. Now, one day, Carmen actually came across Philip's journal, and what she read in it, you guys, was, oh, something out of a horror film. I mean, that would make sense. They turned it into a horror film, but you know what I'm saying. Like, imagine this being real life. When she flipped through the pages, you guys, he had poems and stories of those who had been within the morgue. He had stories of sexual assault to them. He had stories of murder and anger and abuse to the bodies and evil entities. But you guys, what made this journal all the more terrifying was the fact that Philip was actually dyslexic and he wasn't able to, on his own, properly form sentences. And when his mom went ahead and questioned him about this particular notebook and what she found in it, she asked him how on earth he was able to write this perfectly. Because you guys, in this journal, everything was written perfectly. Not a single sign of dyslexia within this journal. He went ahead and told his mother that he had help from the man, meaning the man with the jet black hair. And that was when she just felt at a loss. She was terrified, and when the stories that he had written about what he thought occurred to these bodies was horrible. It was filled with mutilation and abuse and just absolutely traumatizing. Now, in the film, The Haunting in Connecticut, it shows Philip attacking his cousin, and this really and truly did occur. Once this happened, Philip was taken in a straitjacket and ambulance to a mental institution and was institutionalized for 45 days. During this span, they diagnosed him with schizophrenia, as he was always talking about these spirits and entities that spoke to him, spirits and entities that he saw, and that they would make him write certain things. So they diagnosed him now with schizophrenia, as if this poor boy didn't have enough to deal with his cancer. But before Philip was actually taken to the institution and institutionalized, he had said to his mother that something along the lines of that they were going to come for her now. And this would be all the more terrifying when she would wind up attacked by a shower curtain and start to become what she described as sexually assaulted by spirits and just traumatized by these spirits. Tammy herself even began to have traumatizing experiences all throughout the night. She would hear her voice being called, wake up with bruises and scratches. She too felt that she was being assaulted. Even Alan felt he was being assaulted by these demonic entities. And one night, Tammy had been laying in bed. She felt this evil presence. She went to go get Carmen. When Carmen came out, the final crucifix that had been hung within the home was taken. So now all these crucifixes have disappeared. Philip isn't there to be the one taking them, and nobody knows where these crucifixes are going. She went and got her Bible, began reading it out loud, and right before Carmen's very eyes, a hand went up Tammy's shirt, a bony hand, and that was the moment that she claimed she realized this was no joke. This wasn't Philip having schizophrenia. This was a haunted house with something very, very dark and evil in it. So around this time, they had sought the help of many different paranormal investigators and priests and everything and anything that they could to get to the bottom of what was going on in their house. And during this time was when they reached out to Ed and Lorraine Warren. When Ed and Lorraine Warren came to the home, they automatically felt that there were two demons or demonic entities specifically, but that the house was filled with spirits that they claim were mutilated and assaulted by the morgue workers after their passing. So what happened to these bodies after they had died was what kept these evil energies in the home. What ended up clearing the house was an exorcism that was performed, and it is said that after this exorcism, everything kind of went back to normal with the home. Apparently the family only lived there for 2 years, and it was this exorcism that rid everything evil from within the home. Once Philip had left the home and was institutionalized and distanced from the home, he stopped hearing voices, he stopped having these experiences, and it came forward that he had been misdiagnosed with schizophrenia, as he was never schizophrenic. So I find that interesting that when he disconnected from the home, all of his symptoms of schizophrenia disappeared and he was misdiagnosed. With that being said, he wound up getting a lot better with his cancer. However, in January of 2012, he passed away from cancer. Here's where, once again, a lot of controversy surrounds this case. According to the current owner of the home, Susan Trotta Smith, the true story is that the house is not haunted and the house never was. She actually claims, we've lived in this house for over 10 years. Our house is wonderful. This is all Hollywood foolishness. These stories are ludicrous. So there is a lot of controversy as to whether or not this really occurred or if it was a publicity stunt in order to get money as they were struggling and their son was sick. Now this is what the owner who rented out to them believes happened, because she claims that she had pre-warned the family of the situation of the home. If she hadn't, why would there be a bunch of morgue stuff still in there? She was very open about it. She was open as to that being the reason that the house's rent was so cheap. And honestly, she found it very insulting, as though they tried to capitalize off of the backstory behind the home in order to make money off of it. There's a lot of people who believe the house was never haunted, and when the family did a ton of press, people said there was a lot of inconsistencies within their stories, and it was as though one was saying one thing, the other was saying the other. They were trying to correct it, and it seemed as though it had been made up. With that being said, there's tons of people who believe that this case truly happened. It's really a ton of craziness. With that being said though, I will say that Lorraine Warren said that Hollywood changed a lot about this story. While there are certain details that were in fact true, they definitely changed a lot of details about this story that made it a lot less true to the real thing. So whatever that means, we'll never truly know, but she did say that it was very dramatized for Hollywood and that she actually found the real events to be scarier. So there's that. Well, you guys, that is the true story behind a haunting in Connecticut, or the haunting in Connecticut. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Please make sure to let me know in the comments below if you believe this story to be true, or if you think it was fabricated, or what your personal views and beliefs are around this case. I'd like to believe it's totally true, but with that being said, only the family, the spirits, and Ed and Lorraine Warren will truly know. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I love creating the true story behind videos. Like I said, this one's a little messy for me because there's a lot of different information. There's a lot of inconsistencies in the stories, and there's a lot of different points of view. So I tried my best to stay very neutral on what could have been going on, and I hope that you guys were able to form your own opinions. If you guys are new to my channel, or you are just not yet subscribed but you do enjoy my videos, I would love it if you would go ahead and click that subscribe button. We just hit 600,000 Reese's Pieces, and I can't even begin to tell you, this is like a dream to me. I would have never imagined, but I just love watching our family grow. So if you enjoy my videos, please subscribe and join us. Also, if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Makes me super happy when you guys show me that you enjoy my content, and I can't even tell you how much it means to me. So please do that. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness. And until next time, I love you.